Hey everybody, welcome back to the Queens Lair. I am your host, Kellie Miles, and we are in the month of July, and we're talking today about faith-fueled courage, talking about what does it mean to take risks, stepping out on faith, and just doing things that are new and exciting and adventurous and fun, going out there and just taking life by the horns and taking risks and being adventurous and understanding and realizing that it's never too late for you to go out there and step out on faith and live life freely and liberally the way God has intended us to do. So today we have with us Miss World Traveler, Miss Kerry Damiano, joining us today, and she's going to share her experience with us. Hello, Miss Kerry. How are you?
Oh, just great. I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much, Kelly.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm excited to know. So you call yourself Miss World Traveler. What does that mean, and where did that come from?
Well, it's an ode to my pageant background. So I am wearing a sash.
Uh-huh.
I have been in pageants for over 40 years. And so it's a little bit of an
Wow.
ode to that, even though it doesn't really have anything to do with pageantry. Basically, it's a web series on YouTube. And we have a mission of inspiring women to travel and then shop local. So we feature women artists, designers, entrepreneurs, that kind of thing, and just really try to be women supporting women. And that's just where it comes from, Ms. World Traveler.
Wow, that is amazing. So now did you give yourself that title or was that given
I
to you doing? Okay.
did. And that way, no one can ever take it away from me.
That's right. We're
I
going
have
to
to give
claim
it up.
it. That is your crown.
Exactly.
Yes. So that's awesome. So tell me about, what does stepping out on faith mean to you and to you personally?
It means to me to do something before I'm comfortable to do it. Meaning,
Mm,
if the spirit prods me to do it without question, to do it whether I've thought things through, whether I'm comfortable doing it or not. And as an example, just a while ago, a couple months ago, a missionary from India came to my church, and their need was sewing machines in order to give them to families so that they could learn to support themselves with a business.
mhm.
And they had a need, and the Spirit moved me, and I just wrote a check. I didn't look
Wow.
to see how much was in my account. I didn't calculate, have I earmarked that money for something else? I just gave. And it was just having that obedience that to me, that's what stepping out in faith looks like.
Yeah, just being obedient to step out when you're afraid. So like just doing it afraid and taking it the risk anyway. Now, how do you know and how do you
And how do
tell
you tell?
when that's the right move to make? When it's something that, that's
Mhm,
spirit led and not just something like you just want to do because it just sounds good.
mhm. We call it a poke. You get a poke from the Spirit. It's just like, do it, do it, do it. And it's like, I don't want to. But just you keep getting the poke that says you got to do it. And then when you do, then you just get this flood of peace.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's peace with it. So there's, when it's something that you feel that's spirit led, you have a peace with it. There's no struggle other than the fact, like you said, that we don't necessarily always want to do some of the things that he asks us to do, but there's a peace
Mhm.
that comes with it. So what are some factors that typically hold people back from taking those risks or trying something new?
I honestly think it can be wrapped up in one word, which is fear. Fear of
Mm.
failure, fear of rejection, fear of not knowing what you're doing, fear of not having enough money or losing all your money, fear of having to do things alone.
Fear of
It's
the
just
unknown.
fear of the unknown. Exactly. And yet God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of
Yes.
power and of love and of a sound mind. So, if you do take that step of faith, you're not doing it alone. And to
Yeah.
me, that's what comforts me, knowing that, okay, I'm going to do it. And okay, there's a little bit of fear there. Try not to have it, but every once in a while, it creeps in,
Yeah. We're
but you do
human.
it and you know that, you're not doing it alone.
Yeah. So, and that's awesome to know that you're not doing. So, do you travel alone when you go places?
Well, I've been traveling alone for over 30 years. So
Really?
now is I have. When I first started traveling, traveled with my mom, and then I sort of got to that point where I wanted to, have my own experience. And so I started doing it by myself. And this is what I hear from women a lot, that, I'm afraid to go by myself.
Yep.
And that has never really been something that has bothered me because I'm single, single, never married. And so I've had to do things on my own. But for those who do struggle with that, I always try and say, you can be with people as much as you want to. And just because you go alone doesn't mean you're lonely. Those are two
Mm,
different things.
too different.
And
Yeah.
so, addressing that fear of doing it by yourself, and then it opens up this wide range of things that you can do by yourself.
What about the fear when people are paranoid because of all the dangers that's in the world today? And when you're looking at some of these, various travel places, popular travel places like Mexico and other places, there's so many things going on there, in the world that's dangerous. What do you say about that when it comes to making your plans, arrangements, and being paranoid about
Mhm.
traveling for those reasons?
Mhm. Well, there's several things. One, I try not to go to places that are in the middle turmoil. For example, we were going to be filming Ms. World Traveler in November and December in Israel. And
Okay.
then October 7th hit. And so, okay, well, we just completely changed that. So obviously, we're not going to put ourselves in that kind of position. But also, I feel like God, if you see God first, He guides your steps. And He puts roadblocks in your way. And it's like a roadblock to me is things that don't work out. No matter how hard you try, no matter how times you come at it through the back door and you try and make it work and it just doesn't. That is God putting obstacles in the past saying, that's not where you're supposed to be. And I've
Mm,
stopped you from being there. So I trust that sense that if
mhm.
the Red Sea parts and it's just like, okay, this is where we can go, that He's going to keep me safe. So
Yeah.
there's a great beauty in that, isn't there?
It is. It is. That is it. So tell me, how has your faith had an impact on overcoming the fear of doing something and doing it alone in some cases? Like how has your faith helped you overcome?
Mhm. Well, as I said, I don't really struggle that much from fear because I know that I'm not alone. But it's more trying to help other people get over that
Yeah.
because your faith doesn't have a chance to grow unless you put yourself in situations that you must take action, that you must
Yeah.
step out in, right?
Yeah.
If everything's going well, how is your faith growing,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's by taking these steps and so, well, I don't know if that's quite the right thing, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then you get a confidence, and then your faith grows, and then the next time it's not so hard.
And you know what? I think that's something that can be applied across your life altogether, not even just with travel, because there are certain things that people, adventures people want to do, or chances and risks people want to take, whether it's in business, whether it's in relationships, whether it's
Mhm.
having children, whether it's not having children, whatever it is, there's so many things that people can do because life is a risk in itself. It's so many
Absolutely.
risks. Yes. And so it's like, I think the key thing that you said is seeking God first. Because if you
Yeah.
seek Him and you're stepping out on that faith, the same way that, people were fearful when who was it? Paul, was it Paul who was walking on the water? Not Paul, Peter. I think it was Peter who was walking on the water. Don't quote me, y'all, if y'all Bible
Yeah, it
scholars
was
out there.
Peter.
Yeah. If I mess up, because I'm not putting it all together right now, but I think it was Peter when he stepped out on the water, he was afraid. He was scared. But when he looked at Christ and he pulled him up out of that water, he was able to walk on the water because he kept his mind and his eyes focused on him. So a
That's
lot of
right. He's
times, if we
focused.
keep our minds
Mhm.
focused on him, we won't fall and sink and go into some of those diverse places. So I think that's just
Right.
really awesome.
That's right.
Taking that
Well,
risk, step out.
and when you think about when the angel came to visit Mary and to
Hmm.
tell her that she was going to have a son, first thing he said was, "Do not be afraid." And then he said it again, "Do not be afraid." And then when he went to visit the shepherds, he said, "Do not be afraid." So when they say it over and over and over again, you know that there's a message in that,
Yeah.
that it's about trusting God and not being afraid, no matter what
Right.
it is. Like you're
Yeah.
saying, it could be a lot of different things. One of the leaps of faith that I took early on was leaving a regular paying job that had benefits and a 401k and starting my own business 24 years
Wow.
ago. And there's no safety net to that. It
Yeah.
truly is, okay, Lord, if you are leading me to do this, I know you're going to provide, and you just have to trust in that.
Yeah. And another thing, going back to what the statement you made about when the angel appeared unto Mary and saying, do not be afraid, it just goes to show that in life, fear is going to come. It's going to be presented.
Exactly.
And it's a normal thing for us to have those feelings. But the difference is we can't allow them to overcome us and cause us to become stagnant and not take the steps forward we need to take where God might be
Mhm.
leading us.
If we're a Christian, with fear, biting our nails, like cowering in the corner, how is that?
Yeah.
How is that a testimony to anyone about the power of God and what he can do through us?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
If we're cowering in a corner somewhere, how can someone have faith in the God that is stronger than everything and is bigger, that's omnipresent, omnipotent? If we're cowering, if we're his ambassadors and representatives and we are walking in fear ourselves, we can't be an
Mhm.
example to someone else about the power of God. So that's so true. And again, it goes across all areas of life. And so have you ever
Mhm.
been in a place where you were at fear of the unknown? And what was that first time? What did that first time look like when you took that first leap of faith and tried something new? And what did that feel like?
Mhm. Well, I would say that was when I started my own business because of that sense of no safety net. But a number of times since then, in these past 24 years, God has been, doing an amazing work. And there were steps along the way. And one of them was I had my own TV show, and I love doing that. It's like I knew something big was coming, but I didn't know what
Yeah,
it was. And so when that came on, I said, okay, Lord, is this it? And the answer was no, but it's what I have for you right now. And it was a huge failure. Nobody bought the
wow.
show.
Yeah,
Lost my shirt
yeah.
on it. Um, but what it was that stepping out, that a bit of the unknown. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I did it anyway. And now,
Mhm,
as I look back, I see what God was doing. He was giving me some skills and taking me
mhm.
through a time of learning that I was going to need now as I'm doing Ms. World Traveler. And that's really
Yeah,
what these last 20 plus years have been. And that's been exciting to see, that growth and that journey that I was on, even though at the time, you're so close to it, you can't see.
yeah.
You really can only see that in hindsight.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's just so interesting because there were times in my life where I would step out on an adventure or an idea or something and people would look at me and say, "Are you sure this is the right time for this? Because it's not
Mm.
prospering, it's not working. You're running up against so many challenges and so many hard things and it's just not seeming to work out." And if you're not careful, you can easily allow that to get in your head because it can become discouraging that things are not working out and you do seem like it's failing or falling, like you said, nobody bought the show, but in those moments is like you said, God is training us to be able to handle the bumps and bruises. And he's taking those hard things and hard, challenging times to groom us into what we need to handle when we do get that opportunity, that right opportunity presented with us. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The grooming. We could
Yep.
do a whole show on grooming,
Yeah.
right? The sculpting,
Yes.
chipping off the edges.
Chipping away. Yes. And every single chip, it hurts. It's
It
uncomfortable.
does.
And it seems like it takes so long.
The waiting. There's another one, right? The
Yep.
waiting. The waiting on God. And talk about being a step of faith is to wait because sometimes it's
Yes.
doing nothing. He's saying, hold, hold.
Yep.
And you're just like, but I'm ready. I want to. And yet you have to listen to that. I will tell you, I will
Uh-huh.
remove the obstacle when it's time for you to
It's
move
fine.
forward.
Mm-hmm. Yep, when it's time for you to move forward. And that's good. So we're going to pause right here because we're going to get ready to take a short commercial break. And we will be right back to finish this conversation about taking risk and being adventurous and stepping out on faith fueled courage. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. You are watching the Queens Lair. I am your host, Kellie Miles, and we are talking about faith-fueled courage. And we are excited to just have Miss World Traveler, Kerry Damiano, with us today, talking about her experience of just having liberty and freedom of being able to take risk and travel. And so we were talking a little bit about those risks and talking about fear and talking about getting over those fears. And so you talked a little bit about a setback that you had, and tell me how you bounced back from that and what role preparation plays in stepping out on faith.
Well, that wasn't the only setback. There were a number of setbacks. And I think the recovery obviously had to be somewhat financial,
Yeah.
but also emotional. There was sort of like a grieving process that you go through, that something that you got so excited about and were so passionate about, and it didn't really work. And so that letting go, and sometimes that there's a grieving process, right, that you go through to let go of something. But the preparation to me is that God was working even though I couldn't see it. So in other words, I wasn't purposely out preparing myself. God was preparing me for what I'm doing now. And as I look back and I see, okay, the TV show didn't work. And then I had my own clothing line and that didn't work. And there were a number of other, little things that I tried along the way. But now as I see the tapestry, of what God was weaving during all of that time, he was preparing me to do what I'm doing now. And I had no concept. I mean, I have no crystal ball to see what's coming next, but God did. And so he prepared me, even though I didn't know that was what was happening.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really, really good. That's a piece of life that we don't pay attention to a lot of times. And we don't want to see it, especially when we're going through those failures. We don't want to see that those failures are actually stepping stones for us. It's helping to build character in us. It's helping us to develop tougher and thicker skin to handle some of the obstacles that might come to us later on down the line in the future. So I think that's really good to change our perspective on some of the challenges we deal with and some of the failures that we have, to change our perspective on that and not allow because there's so many times that people will go through those things and those challenges and it will cause them to stop taking risks,
Right.
which
Get
can
you down.
stunt growth.
Very true. And that's the last thing you want to do, right? You want to take what you learned and parlay it into the next thing.
Yeah, yeah. So did you ever have that mindset at one point where, you had to realize that you had to change your perspective because it was not as positive, and then once you changed it, you started to feel that greater peace? Was there ever a time in your life where you didn't feel that?
No, I would say no, because I walked with the Lord since I was 8 years old. And so I had such a good foundation growing up of scripture, and I memorized scripture. So I have God's word written in my heart. And so as I went through various things, it never, got me depressed or got me to the point where, I'm mad at God. Why didn't you do this? It was, okay, Lord, you had that for me at this time. Now we have to move on to something else. And again, that whole letting it go and moving on to the next thing. And so if you have a perspective of just waiting on God, seeking him, letting him show you what is next, he will direct your paths. And isn't that a great place to be? Isn't
Yeah.
that the place of freedom, the place of liberation, place of feeling, independent, that you
Mhm.
can try things. And if they don't work, God picks you up and you move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I really like that. And I think just having that positive perspective is helpful because, again, it brings you back to not having to struggle with peace. Because when you change your
Mhm.
perspective, even when those, not undesirable things happen, you can change your perspective on it and how you realize your life is not your own, but it is Christ. Then whatever he allows, it's like you said, okay, Lord, so what's next? So what are we doing now? So that didn't work out. And when you change that and you allow God to just have full control over your life, it's not you still feel because you're human, but it doesn't
Mhm.
consume you.
Right. Doesn't get you down,
Right. It
right?
doesn't, well, it might, even if it gets you down, it doesn't keep you there. You're able to get back up.
True.
Yes.
True. And
Yes.
something that God's just been teaching me just over these last few weeks is that every single thing that happens, good, bad, indifferent, everything, is to bring glory to Him, period.
Mhm.
So, okay, you get a toothache, you're supposed to, that's going to bring God glory in some way, even though you don't like it and you don't want it, it's going to bring God glory. And so, if you can have that attitude about everything that comes your way, you lost your job, or whatever,
Mhm.
it's going to bring God glory. There's a piece in that too that passes understanding.
And I have to tell you, it's so funny you said that because bringing God's glory, even in a toothache, I will tell y'all, I actually have the experience of that because I had a tooth. So it might sound funny, but I really did. Like recently, within the last month, I had a tooth and it was really, really hurting and I couldn't figure out why, and I kept going to the dentist and they couldn't figure out why, and finally I went to a specialist, and then the specialist was able to figure out that one of the tooth was damaged and I needed a root canal. And I was praying and praying and praying because it was just hurting me so bad I couldn't eat at all. Like I had to chew on one side. And so I kept praying and praying, and I said, Lord, whatever you do, can you please allow somebody to find out what is going on so that this tooth will stop hurting me, and then help me to get it fixed to get rid of the pain, because it was months that I was dealing with that, just chewing on one side and not being able to really enjoy my food. And so basically when I went to this one dentist, the interesting part to me was that how sometimes if you break a bone, it'll grow back stronger. And so sometimes when God breaks us, he breaks us, but he builds us up stronger, and he builds character in us from the experiences that we've had. And I say that to say the dentist who was working on my tooth, he couldn't figure it out, but he had to recreate the pain in order for him to figure out what was wrong. And once he recreated the pain, of course, I wanted to jump out and hit the ceiling because it hurt, but he figured out what it was.
Wasn't.
And then that's when which tooth it was. And once he figured which tooth it was actually coming from, I was able to get it fixed. And now I don't have that pain anymore.
Amen.
And I really believe that it was nothing but the grace of God, because it was going on for so long and nobody could figure out what it was. They were getting ready to pull the whole tooth out. And I
Oh,
thank God, because just in that he was glorified, because he came through. He came through. He heard that I was hurting. He heard my pain. And even though it wasn't as quickly as I wanted to, the process happened where I was able to get it fixed. So I just thought I would share that, since you did mention talking about
great
even when
minds.
it comes to
Great.
tooth. Yes. So we're getting close to time, but I wanted to ask you, what is where are some of the places, I should say, that you have gone within when did you start? First of all, what year did you actually start doing your travel? And in that time frame, how many places have you gone and where have you gone?
Mhm. Well, as I mentioned, I started traveling with my mom, and my first international trip was in 1984, so 40 years ago.
You did say
So
4 years, yeah.
yeah, I have been going for a long time, and I've been to over 130 countries, and of course have lots of favorites for different reasons. But if somebody is thinking, where should I go first? I always say go someplace that speaks English, like Australia or England or Scotland, or some place that you're not going to have to deal with a language barrier in addition to many cultural differences and just being in a foreign place. Because even if you go to England or Australia, some of those places, it's still very foreign,
Mm-hmm.
but at least you can communicate. So
Right.
we actually just got back from South America and just a week or so ago, and virtually no one spoke English. So to me, that's a little bit harder to do a trip, especially if we were trying to
Yeah.
film a show
Mm-hmm.
when people don't speak English. So if you want to start, start simple and build up from there.
Yeah, yeah. And so, first of all, I have to tell you, I didn't even know that there was 130 countries. I just didn't know that. And so you said there were a few that was your favorite. So which ones were, name just a few that you felt like they were for your favorites, and why those places?
Yeah, different favorites for different reasons. So for the friendliness of the people, New Zealand and Australia. For shock value, meaning like the heat was shocking, the lack of sanitation was shocking. Just there were lots of things shocking about it. Egypt,
Wow.
for just culture and food and atmosphere, Paris, Paris. Oh my
I want to go
goodness.
there one day. Yes. Yes, that's one of the places that I would love to go one day, is to go to Paris and be able to
I love
just
it.
see the sights. I actually, one of the ladies at the gym that I attend is going to London, and I was just sitting there just glaring like, wow, I want to go there one day. I think it would just be really nice to have it. And I want to try the food because I'm a foodie. I love to try
Oh, are
different
you?
foods.
Okay.
Yes. So I would love to try different foods and see what the difference is within the ingredients and the seasonings and things like that. So
Mhm.
what was your
Night and day.
favorite food, please? You
Ooh,
said Paris.
I actually was in Paris for 5 weeks. That had always been a bucket list item to live there. So I rented an apartment. We filmed the show there, but 5 weeks, meaning that you're not doing touristy things because I'd been there several times and I did all of that. So I was able to live like a local. And one of the
Wow.
interesting things to me about the food is that they don't have any preservatives in their food. And
Okay.
so you shop every day because things don't last.
Yeah.
So their refrigerators also are not as cold as we're used to keeping ours. And so like you buy a little thing of raspberries and they're bad the next day. So if you
Mm,
buy them today, you eat them today. And
yeah.
so that was just very interesting to me. Everything's very fresh and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's what I love. I can't wait to be able to go so that I can try some of the different foods and things like that. So I guess I'll ask for someone who is looking to travel, or someone who's looking just to feel that freedom that you have. Maybe they don't want to travel, but they just have that restriction within themselves because of, they don't have the liberty and the freedom because they're afraid to take a risk. They're afraid to step out on faith, and they don't have that courage. What would you say to them to encourage them and to get them started?
Mhm. Baby steps. Do something small, like, you know, go spend a night in another town close by, and do it by yourself and see how you do and plan an itinerary. Okay, I went to a museum and I went to the national park and I went to, and, do some things and see how you do. Do it on a small scale and
Yeah.
then build up. Don't start with Egypt because
Yes.
start in
Yeah.
your backyard, start small and build up, and then you gain confidence along the way. And so I think that's part of what causes fear is that you lack confidence in your ability to handle things. So build your confidence first and then, go a little further afield.
Yeah. And building that confidence, like you said, means starting with small baby steps. And you have
Yes.
to take that first step so that you can start to progress and go forward and forward. And as you continue to do so, like Miss World Traveler said, you will eventually start to find yourself moving out a little bit more and building that confidence you need to step out. And don't be afraid to take risks, because God has not given us the spirit of fear.
Absolutely. And it's
So,
like that with our faith, Kelly. You start with baby steps of faith and
yeah.
then progress from there.
Yep. and you build it. It's like building muscles. You have to go to the gym and
That's
you
right.
work out and it's hard and it hurts, but the more
Yeah.
you do it, the stronger you get.
So true.
Yes.
So true.
Well, thank you so much for joining the show today and sharing with
Oh,
us your experience. I will tell you, you have inspired me, if nobody else, because that is something that I would love to do. Is just go out there and just get some experiences of traveling and all of those things under my belt and just taking that risk. And I think what we'll talk about next is just talking about some finances and financial things that can set us up to be in a better place and a better position so that we can take those risks and not allow the money part to be what causes us to be afraid. So thank you so much, Miss Damiano, Miss World Traveler. Thank you for joining the show.
thank you.
All right. So we are wrapping up. Thank you guys so much for watching the Queens Lair. We had a great time talking with Miss World Traveler today, Miss Kerry Damiano, and we just are so grateful for the experiences. And the one thing I want you guys to remember is seek God first in everything that you do. Don't be afraid to take risks because God has not given us the spirit of fear. And so if he hasn't given us the spirit of fear, then you should not walk in fear. You can rebuke and reject fear, but make sure you take one step at a time so that you can slowly but surely progress. And just like you build muscles when you lift weight, the more you do it, the more you step out, the stronger you will get, the more character you will build. And you are a representative of Christ. You are an ambassador. Walk in it. So stay tuned for the next episode. We will be talking about finances, talking about setting ourselves up so we can do things like this, travel the world. See you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, and check out our YouTube page, because if you check out our YouTube page, you can see this episode and all the others that have been recorded. See you next time. Thanks for watching The Queen's Lair. Stay tuned for the next episode.